Brothers and sisters, welcome to week 9 of our study on Proverbs. Today we take a bold and theologically rich step forward, exploring how the wisdom tradition of Proverbs points us to the person of Jesus Christ, the incarnate Word. At the heart of Proverbs is the figure of Lady Wisdom, radiant, eternal, and calling out at the crossroads of life. In Proverbs 8, wisdom is personified not merely as a moral guide, but as a cosmic presence, present at creation, delighting in the world, and mediating life to those who listen. Verse 22 says, "The Lord brought me forth as the first of his works, before his deeds of old." This is not just poetic abstraction, but it's deeply theological. When we turn to the New Testament, we encounter a profound resonance. John 1 opens with, "In the beginning was the Word, Logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." The Logos, which stands for divine reason, divine speech, divine wisdom, are not just present at creation, but becomes flesh in Jesus. In Colossians 1, Christ is called the image of the invisible God, through whom all things were created. And in Hebrews 1, the Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being. This isn't theological coincidence. The early church, steeped in the Hebrew scriptures, saw in Lady Wisdom a foreshadowing of Christ himself. While Proverbs uses poetic personification, the New Testament proclaims a radical fulfillment. Wisdom has become flesh. This leads us into the rich theological terrain of Christological hermeneutics, where reading the Old Testament is not merely as ancient literature, but as preparing the way for the Messiah. Just as Lady Wisdom calls out to the simple, so Christ calls, "Come to me, all who are weary." Just as wisdom walks with God at creation, so Christ is before all things, and in him all things hold together. But we must be careful here. The early church wrestled with Proverbs 8 verse 22, which says wisdom was created. Some, like Arius, misused this to claim that Christ himself was a created being. But the church, in its councils and creeds, rightly affirmed that Jesus is eternally begotten, not made fully God, not a creature. Thus, we interpret Proverbs 8 as figurative and anticipatory, not literal Christology but typological preparation. So what does this mean for us? First, we learn that the wisdom of Proverbs is not just moral advice. It is Christ-shaped insight into the order of God's world. Second, we are reminded that all true wisdom leads to Christ, the one in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And finally, this week challenges us to develop a Christ-centered reading of Proverbs, one that honors the text's historical meaning while recognizing its ultimate fulfillment in the gospel. As you reflect on Proverbs 8, John 1, Colossians 1, and Hebrews 1, ask, how does seeing Jesus as wisdom incarnate change how I read the Old Testament? How might I teach Proverbs not merely as ancient advice, but as an invitation to encounter Christ? This week's learning outcome is for you to articulate how Proverbs anticipates Jesus as divine wisdom, a theological thread that binds Old and New Testament together and centers our wisdom in the person of Christ. Thank you, and may you seek, embrace, and walk in the wisdom that is Christ himself.